Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to this webinar on AI design and jobs. I'm Mahesh Bhat, senior faculty member at Srishti Manipal Institute of Art Design and Technology, and I'll be your host this evening. To introduce my co-panelists to everyone, we have Shivpriya. Shivpriya is an entrepreneur who works a lot with AI for social good. She's a speaker. She's been in corporate career at various companies and done a lot of work in this field. Siddhi Gupta is my colleague at Srishti. Uh, she's primarily teaches in a course that we run called Creative Education. But like all of us, we teach across various disciplines. Subramanya Subbu is a course leader of human-centered design, the BDES program at human-centered design, one of the most popular faculty members at Srishti. We have two of our students, Eshwar, Venkateshan, and Siddarth. So they're all eager to discuss this evening. Now, what are we talking about is that as the technology has progressed by leaps and bounds over the last uh, year or so, in everybody's mind, the two letters, that's AI or Gen AI, artificial intelligence, and the worry as to what would it do, uh, what would it do to the job landscape, especially we are talking about art and design, our field that we are working in say 3 years from now, 4 years from now. That is the topic of our discussion. However, let me put out this disclaimer that we are not going to predict anything, because predicting the future is very, very difficult. It's almost impossible. We are looking at the past, how the technology has progressed and what it has done. We're looking at the present and offering our opinion on how do we prepare for the future as from our experience. So that's what it's going to be. Just to give you, in somewhere in the middle, when computers were introduced to India, we worked on the first x86 machines, which didn't even have a hard disk. From then, it was, I've handled that and learned to do some basic and COBOL programming, and then, we moved into desktop publishing, where even computers used to be all in air-conditioned cabins, and you kept your footwear outside and went in, like as if you're entering a temple or a place of worship. And then, of course, Photoshop came in, all the Adobe, various different software, uh, and it started creating revolution, so to speak. Just to give another example, a few years ago, as a photographer, if I wanted to create a panorama, I would photograph these different elements of that panorama and actually send these files to a specialist retoucher who would charge me anywhere between 7 to 15,000 rupees to stitch a panorama. I'm talking about 10 to 12 years ago. Because my retouching skills were not that good. But right now, I just say, I select those files and say, stitch a panorama. Things have changed. However, the company that used to create panoramas for me, they're very much in business. They have thrived. They're doing well because they've diversified. So how do we prepare for the future? What is this AI? What is it going to do? That's the topic for our discussion. And I would like to invite Shivpriya to give her thoughts on this. Shivpriya, over to you. Mute, unmuted.
Unmute, yeah. So, hi everyone. Yes, I have specialized in artificial intelligence, but I always go with a disclaimer saying that, uh, you know, no matter what, the only space where an AI cannot compete with a human is at the scale of the creativity that the human mind is capable of. And that is what I am also a little surprised that we feel the disruption that is happening, right? Like there's been a lot of disruptions. I mean, how many of you can remember what the pre-COVID era was? right? Like, so that was also a major disruption in the way of a lot of economic models around us have changed post COVID. You have political uncertainties, you have geopolitical situations that have happened consistently after that point in time, you have urbanization, you have globalization. Everything has done it, including AI. So AI is one of the factors that has disrupted the way we have worked at this juncture, and not the only factor. And so that is my take on it. And now what has it done? It is just a continuing story. So AI is not new. I mean, it is as old as the computers that Mahesh, you were talking about, like, because the research started back in the 1940s and the 50s for AI as well. So we are looking at a field that was growing more in the abstract space. It was applied less and being more in the theory and the hypothesis phase. And at one point, because we have the processing capability to match the abstractions that we have made, that it has both converged into what we have now as AI models. So it's always been there, and there has been various flavors of it, right? Like your recommendation engines in Amazon, when you buy a product it recommends you another product. At that time you feel happy. So it's just evolved itself, from mundane tasks to highly sophisticated tasks. So that is the journey that it has undergone. However, in this journey, over and over and over, what, at least so far, what has been proven is that to some extent you can, let's say, replace a very manual task, like copying, pasting, those kind of very mundane tasks, things which are repeated, very predictable. That is something that you can replace. But where you need accountability, a human judgment, and the consequences of not doing it is severe, even if I give you an ocean of knowledge, you would still not want to. For example, if I were to tell you, go and fill a customs declaration form and just submit it, I'll give you infinite resources in Google. What do you want? Just go ahead and do that, because the mistake, if you make, the consequence is something that you cannot imagine. So you, just because something is available, it doesn't mean that we will start using it tomorrow. You don't, I mean, it's good to see in the sci-fi movies, but don't think that you can start having a plane that has no pilot. I'm not sure who would be those first few brave souls who will sit on such a plane, right? So that's where it is, because whenever it comes to a lot of things that AI is producing so far, it's consumed by a human in the form of a software or service. But when it comes to the physical world, right, to be consumed by another human, a creative endeavor especially requires a human on the other end to appreciate it. AI can create whatever it wants. What I understand about you, if I'm talking to you, if I'm creating something for you, will be very different from what a machine would create based on what it has seen in the past, what patterns it has learned. So the personal touch that comes is very hard to replicate. It is very hard to duplicate. In fact, I want to conclude this rather large opening remark by saying it's become a slur in the IT space for people to say you copied from GPT. Now, if people take personal offense, if you just go and tell them, hey, what have you done? This looks like a GPT work, and that's it, right? You can see nuclear bombs exploding behind their back. So it's almost become, it now has an effect where it's bad for people to point out that you have done something. So it's also, just remember that while a lot of people are adopting it, it is also having a repercussion of a sort where a person's endeavor is being questioned. So it's working both ways, interestingly. Amesh, you're on mute.
Thanks, Shivpriya. Siddhi, do you want to add uh, your thoughts? We'll go to
Yeah,
Subbu later, and then we'll come back.
yeah, sure. Thanks so much for those opening remarks, Mahesh and Shivpriya. And I'm very glad, Shivpriya, you opened with what you did. And I think it's really given me a lot of energy to add to what you just said. I mean, I don't come from the tech world at all. I come from a communication design world, right? And for me, it was craft first and then design second, right? And that's how I got into a design school and where I am. So, when you say just because a tool exists, doesn't mean it doesn't mean the purposes or the consequences immediate. We still have different ways of using it, and there may be different ways of using it, and we have to know where the line may be drawn. I think what I find very interesting about AI is the fact that we are talking about this conversation because we are worried about something we don't understand fully. Right? Design and jobs are otherwise two words that are not spoken enough, believe me. We charge a bomb, right? Yet, still, these are words that happen either one-on-one, or they will happen in smaller rooms, or they will happen in a formal conversation where there are lots of people involved. So design and jobs are not things that we've spoken about at length, at least in India. Again, there are many other topics that we've not spoken about enough. And I feel what AI does, I don't know how it does it, and I think it does it because we don't understand it enough. It creates an anxiety and it creates a fear, and it is that lack of knowledge that makes us address or talk about certain things that we were not talking about. And I'm looking at it in education. You can look at it in representation. You can look at it in health. You can look at it in mobility, and now design and jobs. So that's my interest here, is that we are going to be talking about things that we sometimes don't talk about, and artificial intelligence or is allowing us to do it, or something that we've not learned enough about is allowing us to do that. And I'm looking forward to hear more on that today.
Thanks, Siddhi. Yes, I remember Shivpriya, back in sometime mid 80s, there was this magazine called Span that was published by United States Information Service. And there was an article on artificial intelligence, and they talked about Marvin Minsky, Raj Reddy, and Douglas Hofstadter. And it was such a fascinating thing back then. Of course, one could only read and, kind of wonder. Yeah, it has been there for a long time, and uh, even in photography, I photographers of my generation, we have seen tectonic changes in in technology, uh, from manual focus to autofocus, out of analog to digital, and now post digital. And each change, in believe me, even when the manual focus lenses made way to autofocus, people were scared. You know, what is this going to, what this technology is going to do? And definitely, when digital revolution came in, there was a lot of and there are a lot of changes happened. No doubt, there will always be these disruptions or changes. Well, Subbu, what do you think?
Yes, I think I'll come from my own experience. Um, Working as a junior architect 20 years ago, okay, I migrated from manual drafting to AutoCAD drafting. Okay, so I'm talking about tools. Okay, and I'm also thinking AI as a tool. So when we migrated from, say, manual to AutoCAD drafting and all, it was a tool which kind of helped us. We were all excited. Okay, AutoCAD, learning AutoCAD, and the kind of uh, mm, uh, options we could come up with quickly, copying, and so these things were all always positive for us. Okay, now say for example, even today, if you Adobe Suite, okay, there is a little bit of AI component in these Adobe Suites, and also it is expanding the design space, which is kind of comprehensible today. Okay, it is allowing me to give me a bit more variations to what I'm thinking. Okay, it is allowing me to make certain things quickly and probably in a more finished look. Okay, it is reducing me the time and all. I think so far, as we said, I think as one of the panelists said, we can still comprehend these things. Okay, it is making our job easier, but we feel we are still in control, as say in creative field. Now the worry is cognitive AI. I don't know how. Also, I don't know the technology, but I'm also part of this group where there is a little bit of fear when we say what happens if the cognitive AI is becoming stronger and stronger every day. Okay, are we going to reach a stage where it is better than us? Okay, I think this is where the fear is coming. I feel. I'm not from the technology field, but this is how I am relating my experience and AI today as a tool. Okay, so far it was more of a tool which made my job easier. Okay, and it was still more into this physical, digital environments. Now it has not got into this cognitive environment. That is where even I confess I also have that fear. So probably uh, towards the end of this session, I may get some more inputs on this.
Can I, Shivpriya, can I ask you that question as a someone who has worked in the field? Get cognitive AI, would it get as better, as good as us or better?
Uh, Not yet. That's the answer. the re- okay. Have you seen some people learning languages really quickly? They know how to sound the language first. The words could be, you can even see children doing that. When they learn a language that they're not familiar with, you can see them imitating the sounds that you start making, that for a second you're fooled that they're speaking the language. But then if you listen close, you'll realize that they're stitching together a lot of things and making a kind of a illusion that they understood the language and they are speaking that language. So it's more or less there. So what I also told you, like, what AI was developed at abstract and parallel because of the processing capability, it actually came into life. It is not just the processing capability, it's also the data that is present. There is massive amounts of data that is present today in the internet, including design, including health information, including e-commerce, your spending patterns, everything. Your entire horoscope is now virtual online, so it has learned from these patterns. So if you keep speaking, it's like a, I would say, I often say this, it's a good imitation or a mimicry artist. It's mimicking what you're doing. It's not doing something beyond what you've done so far or what you've learned so far. It is doing what you know, except you've given those in the form of your virtual data, which it has taken to do that. On the other hand, there is also a cognitive AI research that is going on. That's why I said not yet. It is not matured to a stage where you can say it's developed the reasoning skills of a human. In fact, we need to go back to the 80s, because we started talking about that, is Watson, the IBM supercomputer that had the AI capabilities, won a game show called Jeopardy, and they were very impressed. And they said, let's put this in hospitals and try to replace a doctor. And guess what they found out? It could never catch up to a human. The reason being that a machine as of today still cannot capture tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is not something that you can learn, define, or it doesn't exist also sometimes. You just discover it as you grow. So it's that kind of a knowledge. A machine still cannot unearth patterns in a tacit knowledge. Things that you will take a judgment, a human judgment or a call, it cannot really mimic. So what you see as cognitive AI of today is a very good representation because of enough sample size that you are provided in the internet, but it is not really there yet. And that is the reason why you still do not have autonomous vehicles completely being approved, etc., because it's still not proven that it can be completely cognitive, completely have a reasoning where you can autonomously learn. See, today you're making it learn, right? You are its teacher in some sense. All designers today are teachers for all the design that it is doing. But there is a human who has done it without a teacher, right? That human cannot be surpassed. And that's where I would disagree with the term of using it. You can say it's a loose cognitive AI. It's not really there yet. And so, on the concern that also Subhu had raised, because you don't understand, as I said, there's nothing to understand. If I give you 500 legal briefs, I'm sure you will be able to construct one. And so that's the logic with which it works. You've given it enough data, you've given it enough processing power. Surely it can unearth patterns and start mimicking those patterns, which is what it is doing.
Siddhi, you wanted to say something?
I
You
actually
raised.
wanted to add on to Subhu's question and highlight the idea that when you say, will it be there yet? So also this idea of future will, the idea that we will also not stay where we are, or that the next generation is perhaps already ahead, and maybe as this idea of continuous development of human intelligence alongside, because somehow I feel there is this dissonance that we are going to stay where we are, but this machine is going to become smarter. And I'm not saying it is going to be one way or the other, that we are going to get smarter and the machine is going to get dumber, or we are going to stay where we are and the machine is going to get really smart. But how do we talk about it? How do we look at this future? Because that's where the future gets evoked, right? In the future, which is where the unknown is, where we don't know how smart we are or how smart the machine is. And I just wanted to open that up as well as people are responding to AI, that how do we see the future? How do we see us in it and the machine in it?
That's
Yeah, go ahead.
uh,
Go ahead.
sorry, Mahesh, you want me to pick it up, or you want to
Yeah,
add
please,
to
please go
that?
ahead. No, please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So, in fact, what you're trying to suggest is that can we predict the evolution of our race vis-a-vis the machines that we create? Remember, we are the creators of this machine, right? It will be as evolved as we want it to be, which means in that process we are also evolving, right? There is a lot of things we have jumped. You can see every decade there is a disruption that we have done, and things where we went to the point of no return in that field. So we have been doing that consistently, be it space research, be it your mechanics, be it fuel, be it technology, be it anything, right? We have progressed in a certain manner where we have a point where we cannot turn back to that. No, we cannot now be without cars or be without bikes, etc. So there, it always happens. Now, there will come a time. This is what was predicted by a lot of people, that uh, creative jobs will grow, so will the AI, so will people who use it. But this is the line, right? What I say is that it has to have a basis, that is your creativity. See, two things are required for you to be creative. One is your inspiration, which you take from everywhere. You could research, it could be your favorite artist, it could be something that you see, something that you Google, something that you saw as an image somewhere, something that you had a discussion with a friend and you just got an inspiration. So inspiration is external, imagination is internal. And now, if what you build is based on your imagination and then some reasonable degree of inspiration, it's good. But if it's only inspiration, right, sans your imagination, believe me, that's not going to get you anywhere with or without AI. And now what is happening is AI is helping you get the inspiration much faster. Okay, but not your imagination, right? You can't outsource imagination to a machine yet, because it's existing within your boundaries, your subjectivity, your upbringing. It's got a lot of parameters that are very internalized, and that is not possible to replicate. Maybe once you put it out to the world, then it will take an inspiration from you, and maybe there is a next iteration. You can see the design has also continuously evolved. How do you see websites in the 2000s? You don't see that today. You see, everything has changed in great ways. The delivery models, the financial models, the economic models, the way the urbanization has changed economic models within city pockets. So everything has changed. So to say we will not evolve is an impossibility. We will evolve in one or the other direction. It could be good, it could be for bad, but we are not the people who will stop anywhere, because that's not how our brain functions. So whether machines will overtake, again, if we have done that, it means we have also evolved in that direction. A machine alone doing it autonomously, just like in the movies, is called a point of singularity. Okay, which means that a machine no longer needs you to feed itself, to fend for itself, to be able to do what it does. There is no machine at this point in time that has reached that. And that's what I said, it's not there yet, because, and it won't be there. Don't worry, in the next 10 years, it won't be there. Probably in the next 100 years, that won't happen. Because no matter that will depend on how well we understand what the brain does, and that research is not completed yet. So if you want to compete with the human brain, you need to be wired like the human brain. You can have trillions of cells, billions of cells, but we also have a purpose, as I said, an imagination. Can machines imagine? Can machines, after they switch off, just like us, can they dream? Right? So there is a point where that can happen, but that point is again a very theoretical concept at this point in time. It is not practical.
Thank you. Yes, that is one thing that I also in my classes the last 1 year I've been kind of stressing, saying that to do anything, to make a change, bring about a change as a designer artist, or to make anything, first you have to imagine it. So if you imagine that, so perhaps one way to be prepared is to better your own ability, capability, cognitive capabilities, your own brain power. by understanding things better, being a better imaginator, if that is a word, and uh, basically learning, developing your own capabilities, and we as educators, while developing our capabilities to help our students to develop the capabilities, would be perhaps, in my opinion, a way to go. So at that thing, I would like to bring in our students here. Ishwar, Siddhant, do you have a question to here or something to add? Please go ahead, Ishwar, either of you.
Yeah, Siddhant, will you be going first?
Yeah. Um, Hi. Thank you, Mahesh, for letting me ask the questions. Um, One of the questions I had was, how do we keep our own art safe? So a lot of social media platforms and even Adobe has said that they'll be accessing our images or any images uploaded on their platform and using them to train the AI models. So yeah, a style might not be popular and not accomplished, but it's still not fair for them to do this, right? So how do we keep our own art safe in this particular scenario?
Interestingly, the whole of the tech landscape today will have to answer that, right? Because right from your search engines and then, doing all the assignments quite easily, back, I mean, Mahesh will also tell you, you need to go into a library, hunt for books, look for people, references, order them just to cite something in your paper. But today it's very easy, as easy as ABC. So, in fact, I had this issue with YouTube also, right? For example, you look at a video, you can just make a video which is very similar, and you could probably be more popular than the person who did the original content. So the meaning of the word original content has got so distorted, it's very hard to find out the origins. So two things have to work. I would say this is work in progress. I know it's unfair. One is the legislation itself. I feel that the legality of even the past era, I'm talking about the 90s to 2000s, they have not yet caught on with it. And now the AI has disrupted. Now they have to catch on with two, three things, right? The cyber security aspects, your identity, more dimensions of your identity being part of the internet. So, how to secure that information, how to safeguard copyright violations that an AI tool is doing or a person is doing, or what kind of copyright, I mean, what motivates an artist after all this? I always, wonder, being an artist myself, that I put out something and the next day it's getting, in some sense, it used to give us pride earlier, because I'll be happy because, imitation is a sincere form of flattery, as they would say. I would be proud if somebody mimics me, or, let's say, copy my dressing trend, or something like that. We like it. But now it has happened at a scale where it's hitting you economically and it is not making you really happy about it. So there is a one side, there is a social behavior, and then there is a legislation which is very insufficient, and then on top of that you also have uh, lack of accountability when it comes to the technology. It's a little bit of a black box, which is where you feel like, how come it is getting to know what I did yesterday, right? Like, that's because all the tools that you use are using that information, right? And again, I very unfortunate development, but it's something that I believe that in the next 5 years will definitely get addressed. As I said, there's one side, there's an effect, there is also a reaction and a repercussion that is happening, where these dialogues are already starting. And so similarly, this will also be a point of contention there. But having said that, I think art takes the raw deal, because anywhere else, if you see, everywhere the information is democratic, right? A chartered accountants, what they do, how they file, everything is available. Whatever you want, you want to even develop something forbidden like a spy drone, you can still find do it yourself manuals available on internet, right? Everything is out there, but it is art which is getting hit in a way that others do not. Because just because I give you a car design, I know you're not going to your garage and like, ha, I know how to do it, and you're not going to assemble a Rolls Royce. I don't have that concern. I can put as much designs as I want. But when it comes to art, it costs next to nothing for the person to imitate, and that is the reason why it is getting hit hard. But that has to come with our own personal responsibility, our own awareness, that when you're signing in to use that tool, You have signed in for the terms and conditions, or you go back to something. In fact, a lot of ideation that I've started going back to pen and paper. It helps me a lot. So, in fact, it was one of my teachers who inspired me. He said, Shivpriya, there's no great equation, there's no great design in the whole world you cannot do with a pen and a paper. If it is not sitting in that pen and paper, it means you don't have a good design. So, so it's like you want the Photoshop experience also. You don't want your data to go also. It's like wanting the key, wanting to have the cake and eat it too. I do believe the future is also there with these kind of paid tools. There were a lot of efforts to have emails which are very private, tools which are very private. There are a lot of, we are talking about like companies spending billions of dollars to do some innovation with, let's say, an AutoCAD. So those are behind a paywall, because even an AutoCAD should not be able to, that's the expectation you have. Just because I'm using your tool, it doesn't mean you own the data that you have, right? Just because you're a recording studio, you loaned my recording studio, the artist's performance does not belong to the studio, unless there's an agreement otherwise. So these are all things that has to mature. So there's a lot of room for such things. I'm sure that if you have a paywall and there are unique things available, there is a market for that. So this is where I feel you should look for opportunities, right? Rather than say, oh my God, when will the legislature ever catch up? When will this catch up? You're the opportunity. You have it in front of you, there, right in front of you, and you can utilize it. Nothing stops you.
Thank you. Siddhi, I'll come to you in a second. Before that, uh, yeah, in fact, one of the class that I'm actually facilitating right now is where I've asked the students to do all their research with books in the libraries and not to use the internet. I hope, unless some specific things to see, if I ask them to look at certain references, or if there's a PDF to read. But otherwise, we are trying to see if we can do away as much as possible without the internet, and go to the libraries. And that's an experiment right now that's on.
Use your desktop as well.
Yeah, yeah. Secondly, Eshwar, wanted to answer your question, not an answer, but there's this m- computer scientist called Jaron Lanier. He works at Microsoft Research, one of the early internet people who are the founding uh, parents of internet, if you will. He suggested that use micropayments, like for data usage. In one of his book, Who Owns the Future, he was suggesting that if these big companies are using your data to promote themselves or their products, then they should pay you, a small part of it. In the recent New York Times panel, that panel discussion on the same subject, I also heard somebody saying that if AI engines are using to your art to learn, then they must, pay you. That's one thing to do. You should perhaps, we all can start pressurizing these companies to pay us. Siddhi, go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying that I think Ishwar's question, sorry, Siddhant's question, it was right. And I think it opens up a lot of questions around not just technology, but also ownership. It talks about creative process. I think it talks about digital tools that we are now so reliant on. And I think as Shivpriya was responding, and as Mahesh, you were also responding, I think one is that the black box of legislation, right? And to say, what do we need to protect? But I mean, I think there's also another provocation to say, what are we protecting? What needs to be protected? And how do we think about new ways in which the creative practice is seen? Again, going back to craft, and again, going back to copyright itself, who does the copyright protect? The copyright does not protect the artist. The copyright protects the creative work, and it protects who earns from it. Not all work is created to earn from. So also to extrapolate a little bit of what is the fear, right? Who are we fearing from? Is it, I mean, Siddhant and Ishwar, I think we learn, and as Shivpriya said, imitation is flattery. We learn by copying. We still, do you do something without looking at something else? Can you articulate or say something without referring to something else? Can language exist without an analogy? Can we exist without metaphors? So, but can we, where is the system of monetizing creativity and protecting creativity coming from? What is that knowledge system? And are there other knowledge systems? There are. So I think one is for sure to think about legislation and think about what can we do, because like technology is not just technical, it's also social, it's legal, it's environmental, it's political. The other is how can we rethink technology itself when it is so intersectional and when we know so little about it and when we have the opportunity. I think the new legislation is one way of people and distributors responding to it by saying this is how we will use the work that already exists, because all we know is how to distribute. When have creatives come together to say this is how we want our work to be protected? When have creatives created a platform like Instagram where their work should be shared? And when have creatives come forward to say we will create a tool which we will use to create? So I think don't forget that we still have that agency as we talk about legislation that may work or may not work.
Ishwar, do you have any other question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having us here. And Shivpriya, something that I wanted to ask, and even Siddhi, right? You spoke about how we have the agency to kind of control how our content is put out there and how it's viewed and what happens with it, right? So something that I wanted to kind of ask is flipping Siddhant's question, which was about who, how do we know that our art isn't misused? But how do we, as designers who are responsible for creating certain experiences, we create a lot of experiences for other people to use. How do we go about making it clear to our users that, what, when you are interacting with a certain AI model, this is what is going to happen with whatever you put into it, and this is what is going to happen. How do we do that? Because I believe, let's take for example that whole Ghibli art thing, right? What is happening with that? So many people just want to go, they look at the trend and they go upload an image and they be like, yeah, I got this amazing thing done. But I believe most of the users who are interacting with this thing probably don't realize that they're putting something that belongs to them, their photographs, etc., onto a machine that is going to use that photograph later to train itself, maybe, right? And OpenAI probably has no problems when they have to use that image to train, I believe. I don't know. I mean, I've not read the fine print, but I just want to know from you, how do you think we as designers can go about bringing this transparency while also fighting this whole idea that companies want to keep this behind a wall, not letting users know how things work and what happens with the kind of content that comes out. So yeah.
I mean, you look at it really from a socio-technological perspective, right? Like you have a secret. A secret is a secret only if it is inside your head, right? Have you seen YouTube videos with titles saying, "This secret recipe, you will love it," right? Once you say it, it's not a secret, right? Like, get over it. Or somebody will say, "This is the best you can ever find," and it's out there. It means that somebody will better it. What do you think happens in research is very iterative, right? Like somebody does something and then you build on top of it, or you build
Yeah.
something a contemporary of it or something on top of it. Okay, and that's when somebody builds on top of you. So which means you should expect your research to be toppled in like 2 3 years and somebody else will do, and it's actually a tribute for you because you were also one of the building blocks that helped it, the hierarchy happen. And that has now given way. I would blame it more on certain aspects like the curiosity killing the cat. Okay, in this case, literally, somebody does something in your neighborhood, they see an app, oh, you're playing this game, I want to download it. Right? You're not doing what you need, you're doing what you want, right? It's the curiosity, it's the peer who is doing it, that's like you're yielding to the pressure. If somebody says, believe it or not, when ChatGPT came, I was one of the last users to try it, right? Because I know what it was, I knew how it worked, I knew transformers and stuff. So I didn't really do it. I was like, curiosity, you all got into it, you gave it the data. As you said, you are the one who gave the image in the first place. So when you're okay with it, there is also a little bit of a voyeurism. There is a culture of a validation that you need from strangers. So this is also a psychological angle to it, right? What's going to happen if you don't share this picture, right? Like nobody asks those questions. So these are more than AI, I would say these are behavioral, these are psychological, and these are also sociological pressures that you get into. Oh, you're still not in that platform, how, you're a waste, right? So those kind of pressures you get into. So these, if you can resist and just look at things for what they are, as a job market, if you look at it, the UN Trade and Development Council, they have said that it is growing at a rate of something like creative services are growing at 29%. Okay, something like even a 20% for creative goods being output. Every dollar that a government spends on creative output, they get back $2.5 in return. This was one of the findings as well. There's also an Oxford University one which says that the maximum demand is going to be for creative jobs, because the more you people start using the AI, it will get more homogenized, and people will want something different. Like I always use this in the sari shop example, right? When I go purchase a sari, something will be not so great, but it will look very different from 100 things that he has kept, and your eyes will go there. You would want that, even if you know that it's actually lesser of a value, or it's not as great as the other ones. Let's say they're all fabulous silks and this is like very ordinary cotton. So and if the guy thinks, okay, then let me stock a lot of them, the next time you go, you know what you will ask for? The one that is there in very small quantity, right? And so it's not just a mindset of a shopper and a woman. Believe me, you don't want to look like your neighbor, and so you will think of what is different. So and that's how companies work as well today. What they're appreciating as a design, because it's giving something fast, it's something, it's churning out fast, it's looking tried and tested, so they're like, let's get on with it. Over a period of time, user experience will also be dictated by things. We like to see different things, right? That's in our psychology. We want difference. We want to break free from what we already wear, even if it means taking a turn, the retro fashion, even if we have to take a turn and go back to something, we will do that. So that is the human experience. So if you can't really tell people this is where it is being used, etc. So when I would say that is more of a behavioral and a psychological conversation to have, right? So in fact, there is a new skill that is being touted, which is called a socio-technological skill. Okay, so where you have to take into account human behavior, judgments, and feedbacks, and also the technology aspect of it. You get a little bit of, you can't be an ignorant on technological aspects anymore. So both of them are coming together, and they are being touted as a socio technological skill. There is also a World Economic Forum report, which again shows that creative jobs are on the rise. When you look at actual numbers, no matter what people say, jobs are going to be taken away. Believe me, if jobs are going to be taken away, there are 50 million jobs, I think, around the planet, and most of them are unorganized. I'm not even counting for the unorganized ones. If let's say even 50% gets dropped off, what do you think will first go? The ones where there is very less risk, no human judgment, etc., which is very mundane, automate things which can be automated anyways, things which had no value to human experience, those will go first. Those will fall victim on the way the first 10 years or 20 years. So to answer your question, on to come back to the 4 5 years thing, in 4 5 years we'll probably still have the same conversation with new additions to the AI that would have happened. So on the copyright issue itself, Ishwar, how do people get awareness?
Mm.
I think the one way is that you be protective of your art first. You don't seek validation from outside, right? Again, as I said, that behavioral aspect, you correct. You also try to use AI to boost your productivity as a tool, like Subbu was mentioning. It's a tool to boost your productivity. So please use that. Go ahead, because when you don't use something that everybody else is using to speed up things, you will fall behind. So it's okay to augment your creativity with a tool. It's not okay to completely substitute your creativity with that tool. And it is also up to you to some extent to protect that arena. And like all humans, we have also fallen prey to a lot of praise that we receive, or you feel, as I said, there's a need for validation. That is where the problems are coming. You can't stop a company to exploit that, right? They are giving you the tool for free or something. You have to give them back something. There's no free lunch in this world.
Makes sense. Makes sense. There's
or
nothing.
or I think it's a trend to start creating paid products, right? Like, which are very reasonably priced,
Right.
behind a wall, making sure that the data there or the art there is respected.
Got it. Thank you.
Uh, Subbu, do you have anything to add?
Yes. Huh. No, I'll get I'll take another direction here. Probably this is a change of topic kind of thing. So, at least as a faculty who's trying to teach creativity, okay, I feel can creativity be taught? All these things comes into picture. So even during my research, what is the role of AI? Okay, I keep thinking this. So these are some of the my personal experiences as a teacher who's trying to teach creativity. Okay, so as you said, imagination is internal. Okay, so we imagine which should have been internal, but we need some externalization just to uh, continue the loop of imagination. So this is where some skills comes into picture. Okay, so definitely theory of multiple intelligences, one may not have all the intelligences are in a certain proportion. So I feel uh, externalization tools were necessary either to compensate or complement another another intelligence which the student has, or anybody who's trying to create something. Now comes, okay, AI. Okay, now kind of, can it speed up? What is the effect of this compensatory or complementary kind of thing? I feel AI can play an important role here. So generally, when something of this kind of this disruption happens, we take a step back and say, okay, let's wait and watch, and then we will use it. Okay, kind of. I think we are at that stage. I feel like not using. I kind of not being able to comprehend what it can do as a compensatory or a complementary tool. The fear is no, no, no. It should not replace. So it accepting that it will not replace, we can think of complementing certain skill set in the student's imagination or compensating something which the student lacks. I think probably you can reflect on it.
So this whole, whenever I have done applications, right, believe me, the amount of resistance that you face to get anything onboarded, like, to the public or to specific experts or to a corporate, um, it is unsurmountable. Okay. The reason I feel is that because you're approaching with a negative mindset that it's going to replace me. uh, I keep telling them, right, the replacement, if it has to happen, just remember that it was not valuable in the first place for you as a human to be doing it. But if you put your value inside, if your values were inside, believe me, no machine can replace you. Uh, what, however, I find a little problematic is that by pushing back, you're also not making your life easier in some ways, which could be not making uh, you know eh, you can look at it this way. You're talking about AI replacing humans, you're also talking about 90-hour work weeks and stuff. Like, which one is it? Like, you should be jobless, right? But ideally everything should be done by we should all be sitting at home, but that's not happening. You're stretching because you have to remember there are inefficiencies either in every process. There will be entropy creeping in, even if it is not there. What you start as perfect in any organization, right, there will be entropy creeping in. And every year there will be optimization, there will be continuous improvement that will happen. And now the problem is that all this data being there, it is very hard for a human to even make a judgment. Imagine you're looking at 100 years of, let's say, financial records. If I ask you, what do you think about your company, right, it's very hard for you to analyze. It will take you months, weeks. What you can do in months, weeks, imagine I'm giving it to you in a day. There are better things you can do with it. Now think of what you can do with it, rather than always think like, this is a problem, this is going to, when it will replace you is when you think it can replace you. When you start using it, right, because only you can use it. As I said, I will give you everything possible. I'm sure you cannot go and file customs just because you acquired a knowledge, right? You should have had a certain practice. When you're practicing something, there's nothing to fear. Instead, make your practice more shiny, make it more better, make it more competitive. Oh, my competitor is taking 10 days, let me do it in 2 days and give it to you. Use it to boost the competition, use it to boost yourself. And I would say ride the wave, right? Like it's come like every other technology. Ride the wave. Do not look at it as if it's something external that's coming to bite you. So that's I think that's the mindset that has to shift. Whenever I get something, it's like a child, right? Whenever it gets a toy, it tries to apply it in every direction possible with a curiosity. Doesn't think for 1 second like, okay, something is going to happen with this, or I don't like this. Nothing like that. It starts exploring, and that's where I feel, rather than exploring this, how it can make my life easier, better, or faster, or even augment what I have done. Either there are two types of people I have seen, people who are really good, accomplished people in their fields have fallen prey to this. Okay, I'll ask GPT. I'll anything, right? If I ask them, sometimes I tell them, okay, what's your name? Do you want to ask that to GPT as well, or can you answer that yourself? Right? Over reliance on something like that, or not at all touching it, right? Both are not very healthy practices. No, don't have fear and not touch it. Don't surrender everything to it as well. That's also not really healthy. It's not good for the environment as well when you just keep doing fickle things with it. So that way, I would say there's a lot more of behavior that I do believe for the next generation of kids, that colleges and schools will have to inculcate. In the age of social media, they have to be taught these behavioral, skills, these things that happen to you internally. What happens, what influences happen to your thought process by being in the virtual space. How do you deal with it? How do you rationalize it? I do believe this is now a much needed lesson than the moral sciences that we used to have in the past. I think this has to be the new moral sciences chapter that should be mandatory up until college. And once you do that, you start using everything that comes your way to your advantage. uh, Things should be fine. There's nothing to fear here. As I said, there's no machine that's going to replace you. Maybe people with machines will replace you, right? Like, for example, if somebody is doing something with a machine faster, they will say, okay, this guy is doing manually, somebody's doing it with a machine, let me go with that guy. That guy produces a cleaner work or something like that. So that always happens. So same way, you use this and say, I use AI, but my work is better than that person's work, with or without AI. So that gives you the confidence to go ahead. So the AI skills have to be there, at least how to use the tools, and then the behavioral rationalization, and also the awareness of the legislative and the other dimensions, the social dimensions, and also the disruptions that happen, and how a recession, for example, there was a recession in the 2008-9 period that had very bad consequences for a lot of industries. And now tariffs, sanctions, anything, they have to have awareness of what disruptions can happen and how they can navigate those disruptions. So that kind of awareness sessions are also, I feel, really important for children, at least in the college time, if not in the school time.
That's a very, very good, very good point that you have brought up, Shivpriya, that, it's the technosocial skills, if I may use that word, and basically to be very aware of the kind of thought processes and how, don't fall prey to everything that you hear. Be critical, the critical judgment, critical thinking. I think that's what we as educators also need to. Uh, the other thing is that perhaps to Ishwar and Siddhant, also to answer your questions going forward, perhaps it's better to be a what I call a hybrid creative person, in the sense you have a core skill. Like in my case, it's photography, but I can make films. I can also uh, uh, design books. I can publish them and sell them. I can teach and I can do conservation. So therefore, I can do multiple things using my core skill. So it's not just photography that I'm doing. I think a hybrid creative is a person what the future needs, in my opinion. Siddhi, you had just put something in the chat about homogenization. Do you want to?
Yeah, but before that, I mean, I just think I'll pick it up again from what you, Shivpriya and Mahesh just said. I think it's the idea of what makes you more employable. We were just talking about tools and what makes you more employable. And I was thinking about speed and efficiency, you know. And I was thinking how, so when power looms came, it was a big setback to the handloom sector, right? And you saw people in the same space, in the same geography, have both. Those power looms could have been anywhere, but they didn't because there was another supporting ecosystem that even that needed. There was a financial and an economic ecosystem, but there was also a production ecosystem that helped the power loom. And I was just thinking about this idea of speed and what sometimes that does, and efficiency that does that. The tools we can't, I don't think tools is one bucket. If you look at both the hand loom and the machine loom, and similarly here, if you look at both Photoshop, let's say, which is so all right at the moment, and then AI, which seems like the new bad thing that's going to replace you, how they're both tools, but they both sit differently in our minds. And this idea of speed, and does that make you more employable? And how do we evaluate, right? Because like you said exactly, right, creative jobs are going to get going to get highlighted, or are the ones that may not suffer. And what is this creative skill, and where does that sit with efficiency, and where does that sit with speed? And is that the one in fact that keeps the speed in check, where it says, yes, you've created 50 ideas, but let me tell you which one's going to work because I'm critical and creative. Or, yes, your 50 ideas are great, but let me make them creative because I know how to communicate this idea well. So I also feel, as we speak about and as we have students here, I think to think what makes you employable and what's going to continue to make you stay in the job, right? We just spoke about coming back to pen and paper for its for its many, I think, dimensions. Lack of speed being one of them because it makes you stop and think, right? It makes you refer to something again. It makes you connect things in a certain way which Google document doesn't, maybe, or Miro doesn't. So that was one thing that I wanted to say, is this idea of tool, where it means many different things, and this idea of employability. The other thing, very quickly before I think Subbu also has something to add, is homogenization. And as I think my fear, like, and I think Shivpriya has mentioned it before, and it's come up in the conversation before, is that what Photoshop did, I think, is that, or what computer did, I think it created a certain imaginary of what design means, or what art means, or what craft means, and what should be done with the machine and what should be done with the hand. And I mean, just to give you one example, is the type tool, right? Type exists on the computer. With the hand, I write, or it's with the typewriter, I type. With the typewriter, unfortunately, I cannot type Gujarati. Most, if not all, my typewriters will be in English. And there is some homogenization that happens there because we use a certain tool. And that is something that I think we also need to be more careful about and more critical about. And that's, I think that's where creativity will sit, right? We will have to start looking at who are we being creative for. That design may not mean the thing that we know it as we know it and for who we know it. It will have to expand and open up to allow us to do more things with this tool, because like we said, what exists and what data exists right now, that ChatGPT is, I think the data set itself is limited. And then if we will all start protecting, and if we will all get into this, who will make this data set better if it is a tool that you're going to be using? Let's look at it from that perspective, right? Let's look at it from the type tool perspective. If the type tool is only going to have English, who is going to create? So, right, how did we have this imagination of it? How does an artisan become different from a designer immediately because they don't use the computer? And why are we now behind them to say beyond social media, for whose sake, for why? Right? So just thinking about also what the tool does for whom and who uses the tool. Yeah, some questions that I wanted to put within in the panel's mind. Yeah, over to you, Subbu.
I just wanted to add the craft, compare craft analogy to present day situation. There is one research Profs did. She researched on how certain crafts in India survived. Some of them are thriving. Some of them did not make it. Okay, in the middle of all this manufacturing, which is happening today. So that was an interesting research. But one key factor which came out why certain craft sectors survived was their adaptability. I think I feel that is where it's kind of how can we adapt to this new AI and what do you call it, jobs, or what do we do, and how can we adapt to this new uh, thing called AI? I think there is some lesson for us. So I think I'll do a detailed comparison. At least from this, I got one direction to take.
So you want me to
Yes,
chip in, Mahesh, as just to
please go ahead.
address what
Yeah, please go
Subramanya
ahead.
said. So on the homogenization, yes, homogenization is equal to speed is equal to scale. You can look at buildings as an example. Earlier, high rises were like fascinating to look at least in my neighborhood. I was fascinating to see. It was rare sight to see a building which had more than 10 floors. And today, if you see everything, no matter how much they call it French, Mexican Riviera, whatever they want to call it, it all looks the same to me. At least I am not able to discern. And as I said, the sari shopper mindset, right? Like that, we earn to look at something different from what we have not seen in the past. That's something that we constantly earn for. And so, with the craft example, yes, for survival, there is an adaptability equation that is there. Some things get even redefined, some things get fused. It exists in a form of some fusion that happens. And but all that's said and done, you have to remember that creativity has no speed. The speed of creativity is infinite, right? Because creativity happens in a spark. It is happening when you're taking a shower. It is happening in places that you least anticipate. You're waiting in a traffic signal, it can happen. For the most important point that you have to note, when you're creating, you're physically present, mentally absent. In front of a phone or a laptop, that is impossible, especially when you're seeing moving images, right? Because you're evolved in such a way that whatever your eye captures is considered critical information. Therefore, all your processes stop, all your background processes stop, and you focus on it, because anything that you see moving is considered critical for your survival. Just like when you're sleeping, your ears are functioning, right? Any sound that you hear is important for your survival. So when you are spending a lot of time, again, I tied back to the social and behavioral skills, that when you're spending a lot of time online, it is impossible for you to be creative, because you have not left it be idle. They call it lying fallow, right? In agriculture, they sometimes, if they have overdone a land, it's no longer fertile, they leave it unattended for a year or something, and they come back, and you would see, surprisingly, it would have gained back its fertility. Same thing happens to a brain. It has to lie idle for some time. In this day and age, it's very hard for us to define an idle period where we are not looking forward to seeing something on Netflix or watching our social media pages, etc. So that itself prevents you from being creative. It's not like, see, when you're creative, when you have something going on within you, you're not afraid of anything. But you, first of all, do not give yourself the mind space to be in a creative environment. You're looking forward to the next thing to do. I always tell this, that children are gifted because they are in the present. No, you're always either thinking in the past, you're thinking of what you did or what you have to do. I need to go run, I need to cook, I need to clean, or if it's a college kid, I need to go and attend this, or I need to go and make a call. It's always looking forward, it's never in the present. And for creativity to happen, your mind, first of all, has to be still, it has to be in the present. And even if you're physically active, there is some idleness that has to be introduced, and that happens in a spark. You don't need time for it, you don't need any there is no speed for it. As I said, if you ask me to define the speed of creativity, it is probably, I would say, it's the speed of light. So you need to get yourself into that space and be creative. And the markets are very promising, so there's nothing that people can do without you when you're an actual creator. But when you are also a mimicry artist, that's when you have to be worried, because there is a better mimicry artist in the town, that is called AI. But as long as it's coming within you, I, in fact, I mean, I also employ people. So what's the first skill set I tell them? You should use GPT, but I want to see your ugly original work first. I want to see what you are. I want to see who you are before I know what you better you can do. If you can do better with it, it's great for me, right? It's a deadly combination for me. But if you're only one person, right, then I find it hard, because you're not giving me the scale and the speed. But if you have nothing to start with, right, then no matter how much scale and speed you have, you're not of any value to me. So that's the philosophy that I go with, that happily, cheerfully endorse it, but there are also things that we need to look inward, at least from an because maybe Mahesh's era and my era, or like, we have seen things without a telephone. We have seen the telephone ringing only twice or thrice in a day, and that is considered a very busy day with respect to telephones. And today, with the excess of things that's happening, I do believe that kids are getting less creative. There is more creation and there is less creativity, which is what you see all over internet, right? How many times do you think that something is very creative and it is good? There's too much content, there is less creativity, because your energy is not channelized to be in that stage to be creative, and that cannot change. You cannot be creative while looking at Instagram or at your phone constantly. That's not going to happen to anybody. And that is where I believe that education institutes today have this very vital role of reinforcing being the art of being idle. And once that will trigger creativity, whether you like it or not, it will trigger creativity that you didn't even realize you had it in you. That's the beauty of it sparking for you. And once you find the joy of it, and once you can express it in a pen and paper, and you're really not distracted by the other things, your phone or something, keep it aside for some time, take a detox break, etc. So once you're able to do that, you have nothing to be worried about. And that is, as I said, it's as important as the moral sciences of the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, that's very, very, very interesting, because I recently heard the singer Prala Tipania ji saying that in a concert, that it's when it's in silences you hear, or when you are silent you hear. That was a beautiful thing. There's a question from Amitabh. I'll just read it out. Perhaps with so much dialogue about AI's impact on industry, we could also look at the impact of industry on AI. Which is the larger problem? Unchecked and rampant accelerated profit paradigms existed pre-pandemic as well, and has only been accelerated by technological leaps. Crash and burn creative economies have existed for decades, pre-AI. How do we address the concern on current industry trends on human disposability being weaponized through AI?
That's quite deep. So, yeah. So, human disposability, my God, uh, that's a very, very huge term. And I do agree that the weaponization is happening, right? Like by the big industries, which are, uh, but I'll tell you an insider aspect, right? There is a, it is it is hard for any industry to sustain that kind of a model, as you said. And the same happened to AI itself, right? They were called the AI winters. There were two times when everything was dropped off, in the 80s, and I think in the 70s as well. There were AI winters where it was dropped off completely. I'm afraid this time that's not going to happen. But wherever an AI is used in a meaningful fashion for a good purpose, genuinely, just think of a genuine case for it, right? So wherever it is used like that, it will sustain, just like every other bubble. Otherwise, wherever it has gone in directions where it's making you look more beautiful in your selfie and stuff, that's going to fade away after a point in time. Once you're used to a fad, this is something that having a child, I've observed, is it is eternally frustrating for me to see that they're not satisfied with anything. They outgrow it, and then you have to just get the next thing, next thing, next thing, right? So, and so will we do that. We will jump to the next thing, and this will crash and burn. But if there is anything meaningful that has come out of it, that will sustain. So it is, I mean, unfortunately, a test of time at this point in time. And we are at a very we are at the crossroads. It's like the people who felt when computers came, it's how bank employees felt. It's how when internet came, how people who were doing things which the internet did faster, how did they feel? It's the same feeling that we are having all over again. As I said, every decade has something or the other that is disrupting, and we end up feeling this. The weaponization is happening because we have given all the data to them, right? We have given the weapons. This is the only difference that I have, that usually it's like the bad guys having weapons. In this case, that bad guys weapons are crowdfunded by us. We gave those weapons, and that's why it's called the information era, because we put it all in one place. And it's coming back to bite us. So that's a reality, but we will sail through it if rather than say that, this is always an analogy that I use. You can do multiple things with a knife. You can create art, craft, you can kill someone, you can do whatever you want with it. um, just think of it as something that's come to your disposal to solve your problems, right? Like, now think like this. You have people going and removing mines in a minefield. A dog goes or a human goes, those lives are valuable. Where you can save lives and instead send a robot, right, which has an intelligence to demine the landscapes which have been torn by landmines. Why not? I would say, why not? Do you think that will die? I don't think so. I don't. That's needed. That's much needed. Think of applications rather than say that's negative. They are going in the wrong direction. I always tell people it's up to you to go in the right direction. It's you go in the right direction, and then it will sustain in the way that you want. And if there is something wrong with something, boycott it, right? You're free to do that. You don't use it, you don't do that, and it will die a natural death. uh, there is an this world is big enough for all of us, right? That's what I say. Everything can exist, every idea can exist. There is enough room for every business to exist, every business model to exist, every economy, every idea, and every thought process to exist. This world is um, sometimes small enough, and sometimes it's very big. It's so big that no matter how much you put in, it's able to accommodate. So if there's an economy for those things, if there is a weaponization, you also can create a space where that weaponization is not there, where it's used for genuine good, which is what I also strive to do. So it's end of the day how you use it, how you have it, how you want to interact with it. And there's always a room for everything. There's a room for good art, there is a room for good bad art, there's a room for good movies and bad movies, good photography, bad photography, good dresses, bad dresses, good food, bad food. There is room for everything. Some people, it's all subjective as to who likes it. Nobody's going to like only bad movies or good movies, right? Like, so it's there is a market for everybody. That's what I would say. This world is one big marketplace. So to overtly worry, I would say, is also not healthy, but rather apply ourselves in the right direction. And who knows, maybe we are the influencers who take it to that direction. So that's where we should keep that hope and positivity, and hope that whatever is bad will, if it's bad model to begin with, it will not survive. And that's why the craft example, I'll come back to Siddhi, who said that, oh, saris mills came. Believe me, which one do you think is expensive today? To own a handloom sari today is as good as owning a silk sari. It's very expensive. And that's where, the value has increased. Now people appreciate the value of a handloom. People appreciate the value of a natural fabric that's woven in a handloom after seeing synthetic materials, after seeing after going through that cycle. But that's a cycle that will keep happening. And you can just be at it, and you will definitely harvest its returns. But for immediate employability, as I said, no, be smart, be hybrid, endorse the new. Don't give up your values, don't give up your creativity, but keep endorsing everything to be what is the need of the hour today. The need of the hour is not to just lie down, give up, and act like a sitting duck. That is not an option that you should ever have, no matter what field you belong to. And I always told this, that even if you're making a tea, even if you're doing something, do it with all your heart. That has a special place. That achievement that came out of your labor of making a tea is so special, and so much of a human enriching experience that you can have. uh, so everything need not be looked at from an angle there. As I said, be smart. If the world is asking you for something that's external, be smart and learn that and talk that language and be where it is. But internally, these skills will never die. 50%, I mean, in fact 40% odd is of the creative output is software. The remaining 60% is actually physical. And those are, for example, flood management. You still need dire design improvements in terms of how we manage our sewage, our floods, our pollution. There is still room for improvements. There is still room for design. There is room for industrial design. I can quote you 100 examples. We can just keep talking about it. So uh, don't think the world is closed or it's gone into that spot and it cannot be brought back. There is still ample things, ample industries where this is open. And it's up to us to also go in those directions, in the right directions, and invest our time in the right manner. So I would say, just be smart, and be a little street smart in terms of selling yourself to the employer, but at the same time doing things that you want to do in a way that it doesn't compromise on your creativity.
Yeah, Siddhi, you want to you had raised your
I
hand?
think Subbu can go first
Yeah,
because he
okay.
advanced.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add to what Shivpriya is saying. Uh, I feel with disruption, also there are opportunities created. Okay, one of the examples I can think of is snail mail versus email. When snail mail came, okay, lot of it created a lot of disruption, but it also released a lot of resources. I say the time within which communication is happening today, okay, and that creates a lot of other opportunities. So probably we are at a stage where we are anticipating the disruption, and probably we need to either create opportunities or opportunities are still not identified. Probably fear factor is coming from that angle, I think.
Ramesh, if I could just,
Yeah,
give my
go
comment
ahead.
on this idea is, um, I think the idea of disposability comes when you're not useful. The idea of disposable uh, relates to not being useful, and I think it's a very hard sentiment. I think it's a very big sentiment for somebody who actually suffers from it. Then somebody, and I've realized this in the last in my some conversations that I've had, that who gets affected has a different take on things than somebody who's not affected. And I'm realizing slowly that to be at a certain, and I think it comes back to our question of who we are and how we are also evolving, but sometimes that's also an assumption. To keep evolving is also not easy, and I think it takes a lot of time and effort and a constant learning and unlearning to evolve. And I think that's something that we also have to prepare ourselves for, is that the rate at which now disruptions happen and the rate at which now new opportunities appear is very fast. And to be able to ride onto that wagon, we need to be ahead of it a little bit, and to be ahead of it means we have to do a lot of work, and a lot of that work will need books, and it'll also need the internet, and it'll need the machine, and it'll need a community. So just how, I think one is that, so how are we able to do that? How do we not become disposable will mean we are evolving and we are constantly ahead, and which means we are putting in the work in that direction. That's one, which is not easy. I think it's very difficult. And do that, how do we do that difficult work when I was at a job until today, and suddenly I'm disposable. That change happens suddenly, but that upskilling or that evolution doesn't happen suddenly. That's one. The other is the idea of profitability and business and industry, and is that how can we fundamentally rethink that? Because if I think what the technological leap offers, if that's what is causing this, how do I create a business of care from the beginning where I'm cognizant of this? Do I, as a business, as an industry, from day one invest in evolution, knowing or foreseeing that something like this may happen? Do I create a life cycle? Do I create a circular economy for human resource, which is sometimes not considered uh, a responsibility of the industry, right? Of is not something that profit sits well with. So how do these words profit, AI, industry, human, and disposability and weaponizing then sit in one sentence? And who bears what responsibility, right? The human bears some, industry bears some, AI bears some. Of course, weaponizing bears some, and what is being weaponized bears some. Again, provocations and questions and not answers is again something that I wanted to leave the room with.
Yeah, just one thing here, right? Not every human also wants to be part of a change. Some of us don't like to also. Here is the harsh truth. Ever since we have been industrializing, we have been leaving behind people. We have been leaving behind. There is a severe underrepresentation. There is skill gaps. These are all realities, not just for us. It's across the globe, including developed countries. There's nothing that we are facing which is unique. But we have left a lot of people behind, even with the previous iterations of this evolution, right? They have to catch up. There is a long way to catch up for some people, and that's where I would say having empathy empathy for people who are not part of the story is one important aspect that we need to instill in people, instill in corporates. That's where I always say that you have to sit between the intersection of the business, the responsibilities, the social responsibilities you have, and technology. So you cannot, there's uh, uh, technology has no heart, right? It is what it is, right? The heart has to be introduced into the equation, and without that there is nothing. And already as such we have left behind a lot of people, with or without AI. That's what I'm trying to say, that we have been leaving, and I'm sure this will also leave behind a lot of people. But here is the slight difference. I mean, I would like to take a small contradictory observation here, in the sense that AI or the internet has democratized things. It has made things accessible to people, which platforms accessible to people who otherwise cannot even dream of it. For example, tomorrow you can start a news network, you can start a company, you can do online filing, and you can, with meager amount of funds, you can have a video camera, and you can do a digital marketing or an advertisement, for which you needed like a lot of money and resources in the past to be able to. The entry barrier has been removed, and a lot more people have been represented in the internet, way more than what they are in the industry, in a sense. So this democratization, the AI is also doing further democratization. Oh, you want this? You don't need to spend lakhs and crores of rupees. Now here you go, take this tool, use it, just pay some few, and you will get at least something. Something is better than nothing. For these people to also come up, I would say there's a massive economic opportunity for people who are not having the privilege and the resources that they had in the past. So it's opened a Pandora's box. And that's where I believe, as I said, I give you a car design, you cannot assemble one. But if I tell you this is how it is, you need to set up a camera. You can sit in front of your camera, like have a selfie mode, and you can take a video and upload it, and you can monetize it. That's something that was not accessible to people before. You can teach lessons on, you can have students all over, and you can monetize it. This is not something that a small teacher, let's say, sitting in a village could do in the past. So it is also, it is, yes, it is hitting in certain places, but it has also opened up possibilities for people who otherwise would never have any opportunity or exposure, like of talking to people, interacting with people across the borders. That's something they wouldn't have dreamt of like 30 years back, 40 years back. So this democratization is equally important. It has got money and profitability to people in mediums which would not have happened in the past, right? There's no way. I mean, think of starting a business 50 years back, and think of the ease of starting a business today and sustaining it, digitally marketing it, going on Instagram and selling a few saris as a housewife. Those are all things which is made life easier for certain people. There is disruption. People who have caught on to it as well, across all spectrums of economy, people are catching on to it. That's the reason why it's getting insanely popular and more people are falling for it, is that it has removed a certain access barrier that used to be there economically for many people, and opportunities. So we look at it both ways. We have the empathy as an industry. We also see how much more we can take people along in this journey. But to say that you have to stop this journey because I'm having a problem, like that's not going to be practical. That's also the reason why a lot of people is jumping on the journey, because they are getting things, their entry barriers are getting removed for selling, for buying. That it's online platforms, e-commerce platforms. A lot of small vendors, a small artists can sell their wares. So think of it as a platform and a tool to enrich you, and then you use it accordingly. And also be cognizant that, like in every case, you're always leaving behind people, and that should not be the case. You should also have possibilities of bringing more people into the journey, not internet in specific, but more people catching up with the evolution, right? Like if imagine you don't have those rickshaws, which are manually pulled now much, but you still see them in some cities where it's really harsh to pedal people and ferry them across. You still see them, and you're like, okay, they've got left behind for some reason. So, those conversations again are very large. We can't solve this in this forum. It involves a lot of investment from the community, from the business, from the government especially, and from multiple other players. But what we can do is to enlighten children of the next generation with that dimension of things, that has to be an empathy, and that this is what is the story, this is our story, and this is what we have done, and this is what we can do better. And there is an opportunity here, there's a platform here that can bring changes to lives of people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are almost at the end of our time. 1.5 hours have kind of flown by. It's been a fascinating conversation. Just to sum up, I think what's come up today is that, yeah, don't be scared of, especially for our students who are graduating now or tomorrow, next year or year after that. Um, the you have to be I mean, it's important to be a hybrid creative, to have different kinds of skills with your, to enhance your core skill, and also be very aware of yourself, your thought processes, and uh, it's important for us as educators to instill that in our students. And the what you mentioned, Shivpriya, is empathy. I keep telling our students that, to be a good designer or artist, you have to be empathetic. Empathy is the most important, one of the most important aspects that you need to have. So that is important. And that what's technology also has the ability, it is doing, leaving people behind, increasing inequality. I think as designers, we can, as artists, we can bring it to the fore. As designers, we can find ways to reduce that inequality. Or the designers of tomorrow, artists of tomorrow, can create new worlds, make new worlds, which are very different from what it is today. So the possibilities are a lot. Face it, and be prepared. Prepare in variety of different ways. In the next, people who are in college, as they are in whichever institute they may be, they have to be, to train themselves, and also educated to train our students. I think, is that a good sum up of this discussion? Okay. So thank you. I'm sure Eshwar and Siddanth, you may have more questions. I hope we'll have more discussions on this as we go along. Because I remember Siddhi, Subbu, and Amitabh, we were sitting and have our lunch a few days ago and said, this can't be just one discussion. Hopefully we'll have more. Shivpriya, hopefully we'll see you at Srishti soon. I believe you have come before.
Yeah.
You're most welcome, and we hope to see you at some time in the near future at Srishti. And thank you very much, Shivpriya, for sparing this time, and Subbu, Siddhi, Eshwar, and Siddhant to be here. And thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Looking forward to more such sessions.
Yes,
Sure.
yes, thank you.
Thank
Quite
you.
insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.